Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tap Into the Truth. With you as usual, this is your host, Tim Tapp, coming to you live from rather soggy, but still beautiful just the same, Roane County, Tennessee. Tonight, we're talking about how the Occupier has become the destroyer. Make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, it is time that if you are conservative, you have to stand up and take the discussion to every single person you know. We have to do, as citizens, what evidently our elected officials, even on the conservative side of the aisle, seem unable to do, and that is actually communicate with our neighbors. We have to be able to talk to these people, show them where the lies are. I mean, even when faced with the reality of increasing insurance rates and increasing deductibles and failure upon failure of one program after another, cash for clunkers ends up doing more harm to the environment than any possible benefit of the higher fuel efficiency ratings of the cars put on. The attempts at trying to aid the insurgency in Syria in their civil war, actually arming our enemy and Al-Qaeda affiliated terrorists. Let's look at every single thing that this man has said and done since first coming into the national stage. The Occupier is intent on, within 2 or 3 terms of holding the office of president, to destroy the Constitution. The ultimate goal and agenda of the so-called progressives is to eliminate the major obstacle in their effort to try and create their utopia. They don't want constitutionally limited government, because if the government's limited, then they can't do all those wonderful things that every Marxist socialist wants to do. Freedom of speech is fine for the left, as long as you agree with them, but if you don't agree with them, they want to silence you. The right to bear arms, only if you're in the military or the police. The Constitution has been under assault, and now the Democrats are trying to tell us that the 14th Amendment means that the president has the authority to raise the debt ceiling without congressional approval. Ladies and gentlemen, please, the Bill of Rights, if you don't want to go through and read the entire Constitution, the Bill of Rights is in very simple language. Google it. Pull it up. Look at these things for yourself. It won't take that long to read these things, which is part of what absolutely boggles my mind, that so few people understand this. If there's something you don't know, if there's something you can't remember, pull it up. Most of us have smartphones now. Within a few seconds, we can Google this information, we can read through it, and we can have the conversation right there with our friends, our neighbors, the members of our church family, the members of our biological family. We have to reach out. We have to become communicators. We have to express the values and virtues of conservatism, and why conservatism is the only way out of this mess that the so-called progressives have managed to incrementally push us into. The whole argument about the debt ceiling is completely bogus, because it's based on the premise that they expect you to believe that the only way we can pay our bills is to borrow more money. Now, folks, it really is this simple. We are literally borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. At some point, there gets to be a level where we can no longer continue to do that. How many of you out there, and I hope not very many, have ever been in a situation where you had to use a credit card in order to get to your next payday. And then, because you had to pay that extra money on that credit card off, you found yourself off that much more the next go around. It's the exact same thing, ladies and gentlemen. It is as simple as spending the money that you bring in and spending no more. Occasionally, emergencies pop up and you have to be in a position to do something about it. Yes, in day-to-day, every average American has faced that situation. And the only way to make it through is to find a way to increase your revenue. Now, that is what the folks on the left latch on to and try to convince the American people that that's all they're doing. And then they turn around with promises that, well, since the vast majority of you don't actually pay taxes anyway, it's not going to hurt your feelings if we go after the folks that are actually out there making productive improvements to the economy, right? We're going to go tax the rich. Now, for whatever reason, the conservative leadership was touting that they're done with the revenue side of the debate. Now it's time to get the budget cuts. That was moronic, because on the very same day, and don't get me wrong, Mitch McConnell, I'm not a hater, but it was very naive for you to believe for one second that the Occupier or anyone on the left was done with the tax side of the equation, because it wasn't even 24 hours before they were out there taking what the Republicans had offered. Let's close tax loopholes. That's the new battle cry. Obama put it in his surprise press conference today, along with the threats, once again, just like in the last debt ceiling debate, that Social Security checks won't go out, and our military payroll won't go out, and benefits from Medicare, and all these, woe is me, they're going to hurt the little people. What are they doing? They're utilizing the press and they're utilizing their machine to go out there and paint the picture that the GOP, that the Republicans, that conservatives are the enemy of people who don't have much. That's why we have to be able to go out there and point out how that's just flat out a lie. The people who are the enemy of the people who don't have much are the intellectual elitists who believe that all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. If anybody doesn't get that reference, I suggest you go out and read Animal Farm. Now, what we have to do in order to communicate is get to the level of the people that we're going to be talking to. And by that I don't mean getting down and dirty and getting to screaming matches and whatever, but we have to talk to these people in a fashion that they're not going to reject us offhand, and that we can make common everyday examples and points that they will understand, things that will make sense to them. We can't just talk about grandiose concepts that we know they don't have any knowledge of. So we need to talk to our friends and neighbors a little bit more, and we need to talk to our family members a little bit more and figure out exactly what it is, what their level of understanding is, so that we can do the quick education catch-up thing and help these people to understand how an attack on any part of the Constitution is an attack on all personal liberty. I mean, it should be easy enough to make the point for somebody who's been stuck in public housing for a while. Well, hopefully not for too long, because once you get used to it, you don't notice it anymore. But somebody who's recently had to move into public housing, how much access to your personal information that your creditors wouldn't allow out do these people have? Supposedly, so that they can make sure that you're not going to take advantage of the program. But then, what do they actually do? They get a level of control over you because they can see as soon as you do something to try and improve your situation, they will penalize you. What, you made an extra $5 this month? Well, we're raising your rent $10. And for all those great Planned Parenthood voters out there who decided that $9 a month worth of contraception was enough reason to vote for the Occupier, pretty sure that most of your all's paychecks have been reduced by at least $1,000 a year. $9 a month, $1,000. That math hurts my head. The fact that not only, number one, that that's real, but number two, somebody was dumb enough to believe that that was a good idea. They constantly accuse the conservatives of being short-sighted and stuffy and unwilling to change and unwilling to compromise. If you heard that press conference today, what you heard was a man who, again, flat out says he's in charge, it's going to be his way or the highway, and he intentionally uses imagery that they have tried to inflame, the imagery of holding a gun to the head of the American people. They're flamboyant. They know how to make a point, and they're not afraid to lie to do it. Oh, like how the last time there was a debate over the debt ceiling that actually led to increased national deficit. Well, of course it did, because at the end of everything that was said and done, what happened? They raised the debt ceiling. When the debt ceiling went up, of course that added to the national debt, because what was the very first thing that the Occupier's administration did? They went and borrowed more money. You can't keep borrowing money to pay for bills, because the only thing that happens is the bill keeps getting bigger. Obama comes out and says, let me try to inform you. Let me try to educate you. Raising the debt ceiling doesn't authorize new spending. Well, in the sense, and this is where political spin comes into play, and we've got to be able to adequately discuss, show examples, and explain the difference between facts and spin. Here's where political spin comes into it. Technically, it isn't an authorization of spending on any new projects. It's not an authorization to increase the amount of spending on any existing projects. However, it is an authorization of new spending when you consider the fact that by adding to the debt, even if all you're doing, which about all we are doing right now, is paying the service of the debt, which means we're paying interest only, in creating a larger sum total of debt, you're creating a larger sum total of how much interest you're going to have to be paying. Wouldn't it be much easier if the Fed would raise interest rates so that savings bonds were paying something? I mean, wouldn't Americans in droves, if the smart money was to invest in savings bonds, instead of still trying to put money into the stock market, which is still the best place to get a return on your cash right now, the money goes where the returns come from. If the Feds were to increase how much they were going to pay, now, again, this is an increase in the national debt, but at least it's long-term and would not require an immediate payout. In fact, for the folks that were going to hang on to the maturity of the bonds, this is a long time down the road.